We now come to the first Select Committee statement on behalf of the Treasury Committee. Dame Meg Hillier will speak for up to 10 minutes, during which no interventions may be taken. At the conclusion of her statement, I will call members to ask questions on the subject of the statement. These should be brief questions, not full speeches. Can I emphasise that questions should be directed to the Select Committee Chair and not the relevant Government Minister. Front benchers may take part in questioning. I call Dame Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it gives me great pleasure to make a statement on the first report of the Treasury Select Committee this Parliament, and I thank the House again for giving me the honour of occupying this position. And our first report is on the new Office of Value for Money. And there will not be a single member in this House who doesn't believe in value for money for our constituents, who pay for government services through taxes that they earn hard and give grudgingly to be spent well. As the Chancellor herself has been very clear, the taxpayer is not an automatic cash machine, and every penny of taxpayers' money needs to be spent as well as possible. So the notion of value for money is one that I think we would all support. And we also need transparency. And that is a large part of the role of the Select Committees, to shine a light on government actions. And so this is our first public report shining a light on the work of the Treasury. The Office for Value for Money is a short-lived, one-year-long body which is expected to have 20 staff, including secondees from the National Audit Office and the Evaluation Task Force in the Cabinet Office. It's headed by a chair and who told us it would conduct a small number of studies, mainly on a cross-departmental basis, to identify better value for money across government. But our committee found, when we spoke to the chair in our hearing at the end of December, that at that point, although it was supposed to have 20 members of staff, it only had 12 members of staff, and all are at below Director General level. So for those who are not familiar with the civil service, this is not the most senior civil servants. That total of 12, and indeed the ultimate total of 20, will include secondees. They had not ruled out before just in December using external consultants to bolster the skills that they will need to deliver on the work set out. And it had not yet decided at the end of December, which areas it would launch studies into. Nor had it set the parameters for evaluation of how effective it will be. And we were clear as a committee that having a body that's got a name that we would all agree with the principle of isn't enough. We want to see any body like the Office for Value for Money deliver for our constituents. And there is a risk that we highlighted very firmly in the report of duplication. There are already a large number of bodies across government that deliver on value for money, that scrutinise government, that shine a light on how money is spent. The National Audit Office, which has nearly 1,000 staff in Newcastle and London. The Evaluation Task Force in the Cabinet Office, which works to evaluate projects across government to make sure that they're properly delivering. The new National Infrastructure and Service Transformation Authority, which will be operational by spring of this year, but brings together the previous Infrastructure and Projects Authority in a slightly different format. There are units in departments that work to deliver on a range of value for money, and in particular in the new arrangements for the Department for Science and Innovation and Technology, which is now the Centre for Digital Transformation of Public Services, and the Cabinet Office has a readiness programme based on regulations arising from the Procurement Act of 2023 called Transforming Public Procurement. There's also the rainbow of books. Again, for those of you new to Parliament, if you walk into the Treasury and you ask questions about the Green Book, the Teal Book, the Magenta Book, and there are others, you will learn that that is how quite a very important infrastructure for how guidance is issued by His Majesty's Treasury on how to appraise policies, programmes and projects. That's the Green Book. The Teal Book provides guidance on project delivery in government, including managing on projects, programmes and portfolios, and that has been in an internal trial since July 2024. And the Magenta Book, which provides Treasury guidance on what to consider when designing evaluation. There are also a number of frameworks: the Government Efficiency Framework, the Public Value Framework. There is also data sets that are provided, including the priority outcomes and metrics set first in the spending review of 2020. And every department, and this is one of the most crucial elements of delivering value for money, has outcome delivery plans. This is where really the meat and drink of what's going on in government, and as Secretaries of State sit and plan about what they might be having to deliver in the spending review that is coming up in June, they'll be poring over those outcome delivery plans as they do their zero-based review across all departments. Each department will have its own to look at where money is being spent and what projects are being delivered. And overarching, of course, there's managing public money, which is the approach that all permanent secretaries, who are the accounting officers, therefore responsible for answering for how taxpayers' money is spent and government through the accounting processes of government, and their accounting officer assessments have to fit in with that regime. As I say, we all want to see value for money, but a lot of this young body is a year long and is not yet well established. So we need to make sure that duplication that risk of duplication is very high, that they actually deliver something special and different. And crucially, nowhere in the Office for Value Money are ministers playing a role. They will have a key role in delivering on the spending review, but it is often, in the experience that I've had as, in over a decade of scrutinising public spending, ministers who make promises who then can't always be well delivered can actually drive up public spending if we're not careful. So it's vitally important that this body delivers as said. So we have asked the Treasury very clearly to set out in more precise detail what it expects the Office for Value for Money to deliver, to set out in more detail how it will evaluate its success, and also what it wants to see long term from the delivery of this body, which is chaired by David Goldston. So we wish this body well, but the committee is very clear that as set out at the moment, there are a number of areas of concern that we have about whether it will actually deliver what it's set out to do. Thank you, Madam Deputy.
Dame Harriett Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, for calling me so soon, but to congratulate the Honourable Lady on not only her excellent chairing of our committee this report, but also securing this slot in the chamber to tell people about some of the recommendations in the report. And her background as the former chair of the Public Accounts Committee is one which gives huge credibility to the points that she's making about the possibility that this new and temporary body will not be able to perhaps make its mark in the way that the government hoped. Could I ask her, with her extensive experience, one of the subjects that my constituency has benefited most from in terms of value for money from public spending has been flood defences, and would she agree from her long years of experience that actually protecting our communities from the impact of climate change is one of the best areas for the use of public money?
Dame Meg Hillier.
Speaker, it's a pertinent point that the Honourable Lady, who sits on the former chair, of course, of the Treasury Select Committee, who serves still on the committee, highlights. One of the things that the chair of the Office of Value for Money did say is that it's not just about cash costs, but actually sometimes about they want to look at programmes that will save costs in the long run. But it was still very ill-defined, and we need to hear more detail, because that is the golden, the holy grail really for a lot of government, how we can spend, if we can spend to save, that benefits our taxpayers in the long run in terms of cash, but also in the case of flooding in particular, actually prevents something that's catastrophic for many communities.
Shadow Minister Richard Fuller.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I join the thanks to the Chair of the Treasury Select Committee and her committee for her report on the Office for Value for Money. Given the increasing pressures on public expenditure since the budget, this report is timely. Madam Deputy Speaker, what the picture the report paints is that the Office for Value for Value, its remit is vague, the personnel are limited, time is tight, and other established groups are already in place. And therefore there's a concern that its efforts may be dissipated. It's clear it can't do everything. So does the Chair of the Select Committee agree with me, and the Chief Secretary of the Treasury is here today? I understand that the Chair of the Office was clear there were a few areas that he would be looking at. Does she agree with me that it would be valuable for the Chief Secretary to make clear and public what those areas of investigation are, so that we can more clearly monitor where their impact can be felt?
Dame Meg Hillier.
Deputy Speaker, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question, and he's actually saying what we have said in the report as a cross-party select committee of this House, that we do need more detail about what will come. We recognise that at the moment he was in front of us before Christmas, given that the body had only been established in October, he might not have all the answers, but we do need those with dispatch if this body is going to be disbanded in October and also contribute meaningfully to this spending review, potentially, though within the time frame we recognise that would be very challenging. But to lay down, if it's going to lay down markers for genuine value for money and better spending by government in the long term, we need precision about what's had, and we've asked the Treasury for that, and hopefully it will respond to us in quick time. Well, it has to respond to us whether it wants to or not, in quick time, with giving us answers on that, but also to evaluate the effectiveness. So when the Office for Value for Money does come up with its studies and come up with things, they will then have to be taken on by the Treasury, and how we want to know the mechanisms for doing that, and how the Treasury will prove to this House and to taxpayers that this actually made a big difference.
John Grady.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Value for money in public spending is very, very important to my constituents in Glasgow East, who work very hard for their money. And of course in Scotland, under the SNP, we have higher rates of income tax for anyone earning more than £29,000, and a government in Edinburgh, and a government we've just finished with, that has indulged in some shocking wastes of money. Will my honourable friend agree with me that it is essential that the Office for Value for Money sets out its suggestions for ways of securing value for money for future reference both in London and in Edinburgh?
My honourable friend highlights the very important points that I mentioned, that already that our constituents give government money after they've earned it, hard-earned money, in the belief and hope that we will spend it, that government will spend it wisely. So it is important that the Treasury is clear what it will expect to get out of the Office for Value for Money, and make sure that it, as a result of that work, proves to the House and to voters and taxpayers that it is actually getting better value than it would have done had the Office for Value for Money not existed.
Chris Coghlan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I too would like to congratulate our Chair, the Honourable Lady, for both her excellent chairing of our committee and this excellent report. I share our Chair's concerns, given that the NAO has 1,000 staff and the Office of Value for Money has 20, but only 12 are in post, around whether it will actually be able to deliver value for money. So what additional steps would the Honourable Lady like to see to reassure the committee that it can indeed offer value for money?
I thank the honourable gentleman for that point, and it is important, I think, that we know what the Treasury really is expecting to get from this body, because I think the Chair was straightforward with the committee, as I'm sure he will agree, having sat in that session, about the limitations of a body of this nature: time limited, few staff, not very senior staff, and I don't mean to denigrate, I'm not denigrating in any way the staff who are no doubt working very hard on this, but we need to be clear what we're getting from the headline of the Office of Value for Money, from the organisation that is small and lean, and what it's adding in addition to the other bodies, of which I listed only a few, that are, or not all of those, that are already in place across Whitehall.
John Glen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to thank the Honourable Lady for her skillful and professional manner in the way that she chairs the Select Committee. I think we were all, as committee members, straining to find what the substantive additionality of this body was. I'm not sure we totally convinced ourselves of what that was. I welcome very much that the Office for Value for Money is time-limited unit within the Treasury. And I also welcome that the Office for Value for Money intends studies in specific high-risk areas of cross-departmental spending. Being Chief Secretary is not an easy role, and I'm sure the incumbent would say that it's been made far worse by all his predecessors. But one area that I think does bear scrutiny, and I was wondering if the Honourable Lady would agree with me, is the future of the UK HSA, Health Security Agency at Porton Down. In September 2015, a previous Chancellor suggested that it should move to Harlow. In 2020, additional investment was needed at Porton in a national crisis, and there remains enduring uncertainty of where that investment should lie. And there is a real risk, and this is a classic example of what this office should be capable of doing, which is actually evaluating where future investment should be in the national interest. And I would echo I'm sure she would agree, that the concern around this, a lack of specificity around what those specific areas of focus does create ambiguity. And would she welcome more clarity on what that focus would be over the last 6 weeks?
I thank the Right Honourable Gentleman, also a member of the Treasury Select Committee and of course a former Chief Secretary of the Treasury, for that intervention. And we can have a whole debate about Porton Down and the Animal Health Centre in Weybridge, where there's been underinvestment by his government and challenges laid on his side. But we're here not to make party political points. There are areas of underinvestment. But I think that lack of specificity and the duplication issues are really key concerns as reflected in the report, as I say, cross-party report from the Treasury Select Committee. There is a danger that this body, unless it narrows down its focus soon, will not have time to deliver in time to aid the current Chief Secretary in his work in ensuring that departments deliver on the spending review, come up with the proposals that will be the best value for money for the taxpayer. And we need that clarity, and I think the government should welcome this report because it will help give them an opportunity to seek greater clarity from this body in order to aid the challenging spending review process.
So Julian Lewis.
It seems that the chair of the Treasury Select Committee has come to the firm conclusion that the Office for Value for Money is itself not value for money. But in carrying out her investigation of this body, which appears to have been set up only for a very limited period, she must have asked it what its terms of reference are and why it's been set up for only a limited period and what it's intended to achieve. My guess is that the answer is something to do with being able to search just about anywhere across the spectrum for any particular project that causes concern. Did she get an answer of that sort? She must have got some sort of answer, surely.
Meg Hillier.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman very much indeed. I should just stress, of course, it's not my evaluation, it is the committee's evaluation of this, and we were unanimous in our concerns, but I think also unanimous as a committee in our desire to see taxpayers' money spent well. So we did, of course, ask questions of the Chair, and in our report it reflects the areas that he was discussing that he might consider looking at, particularly areas where there's great risk, particularly areas of cross-party, cross-departmental working. And there has been a move over years to have more cross-departmental or joint departmental bids into the spending review, but it hasn't really got traction because we have a terribly siloed culture in Whitehall. So it is a big challenge, and this current government of my own party, of course, has the missions which is aiming to bring those together. So he hinted really that he's going to be looking at some of those said he was going to be looking at some of that, but in the time frame available, that's quite a lot to do. Those bids and those cross-party working areas have to be identified, those departments have to cooperate, and then they have to have the resource to look at where the issues are. And with 12 people so far, it's probably a bit more than that since we actually saw the Chair in our hearing, but with only 20 in total, that's a very stiff ask. So it is, I think, helpful, hopefully, to Treasury Ministers to now sit down with the Office of Value for Money and push them to make sure they come back with exact areas that they propose to look at that will be most useful to the government to deliver value for money.
Final question on this statement, Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I can thank the Honourable Lady very much for her statement and the questions she's answered. As an Ulster Scot, of course, as many of us in this chamber are, every pound's a prisoner. Might be an exaggeration, but nonetheless it tells you how maybe we're very, very thrifty when it comes to money. Ever mindful of that, of course, and the Honourable Lady will be aware, I hope the Honourable Lady is aware of the issue when it comes to agency staff within the health service in particular. The cost for agency staff in the health service is some 15% above the cost for an ordinary nurse's pay. I've highlighted this in the House, Madam Deputy Speaker, on a number of occasions to the Health Department directly. Would the Honourable Lady and her committee take this matter on board and investigate how permanent nurse jobs could be allocated? If you want value for money, then 15% saving must be worth that effort and that commitment.
Hillier.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Gentleman is tempting me to stray into the territory of the Honourable Gentleman Member for Cotswold, except I think his constituency's changed its name, who currently chairs the Public Accounts Committee, but it's exactly the territory for the Public Accounts Committee to examine. And of course, we all do know that whether it's schools or hospitals, agency staff cost more, and there is an issue about the pipeline of staff. But I will stop there because that is really not the matter for this committee, or indeed for the Office for Value for Money, because it's short-lived. It would not have the opportunity, what we've heard from the Chair, to look at something on that. But I'm sure that the Chair of the Public Accounts Committee will be listening and will take his points on board.
Yeah.